where this village is currently and what it looks to do going forward. I've been very instrumental with with two specific entities as it relates to them being in financial emergencies. And I've spoken at length with the president and with Trustee Hill about current status of things financially around here. And it's very important as you all go through this time to have someone who's familiar with the current emergency management statute that's in place. There have only been two consent agreements negotiated in the state of Michigan under the current emergency manager statute, and I've negotiated both of them. There was a third one that was supposed to be signed yesterday, but the city of Lincoln Park, which wanted to hire me, but just ended up not hiring me, they weren't able to get their consent agreement passed, and hopefully they're able to do it tomorrow. But be that as it may, I look forward to assisting you all. I look forward to going through the RFP process, and I'll entertain any questions you want to ask.
Okay, well, can you, for those who may not know, can you explain what a consent agreement is?
And before I forget, also here with me today is my colleague. His name is Kevin Laidler. He's an attorney. He doesn't live too far from here, but he's my right hand, and he does a lot of my legal research, and he's a fine lawyer. The current Emergency Manager Act, which is called Public Act 436, gives, once there's a team that comes in to a municipality and they evaluate where the municipality is from a financial standpoint, and that team is called a financial review team. That's the first step in the entire process. Ultimately, usually, there's a finding that a financial emergency exists, and at that point they recommend to the governor that there be some level of intervention. The difference between the current Emergency Financial Manager Act and Public Acts 4 and 72, the predecessors, is that the current Emergency Financial Manager Act gives the township or the village a choice as to which option you want to take to get yourself out of this emergency. The consent agreement option is thought generally to be the least onerous option of the four options that you have. And let me talk about the other three. First is the bankruptcy, and we all know what that is. That doesn't need a lot of explaining. The second is the financial manager, emergency financial manager. And we can just look to Detroit and some other areas as to what that means, so we know what that is. There's a new creature under the Public Act 436, and that's called essentially it's called the mediation option, which basically says you get all of your creditors together and you get them in a room and you have 60 days to try to work out a deal that everybody can live with. And then hopefully everybody will walk away and the village will remain as a functioning entity. That option has never been chosen yet. And the Treasury will admit that they wouldn't know what to do if somebody chose that option, because it's it's so loose and nobody really knows enough about it. And the last option is the consent agreement option. And what that does is it allows the village and the state of Michigan, or the Department of Treasury, to enter into an agreement as to how the village is going to operate for the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or it could be an unlimited amount of time until the occurrence of a particular event. Depending upon the specific financial situation of the village or city, that's going to determine what type of arrangement specifically is going to be engaged in between the treasurer and the village. two entities that are currently under this consent agreement, they have a person who is solely selected by the treasurer, who's known as a consultant, okay? And that's a duplicitous term for purposes of the consent agreement, because that consultant, in some circumstances, and this is pursuant to the statute, that consultant has certain emergency manager powers, and even powers that, can usurp the powers of the president. So if you're negotiating something like that, you have to make sure you don't give away everything, that you reserve something. But at the end of the day, what Treasury wants, because Treasury is making an investment in the village, and they want to make sure they have someone that's there that they trust, and they want to make sure that ultimately they have their finger on the pulse of what's going on, and that if the train looks like it's going off the track, they have somebody there that can get it right back on track.
No, go ahead.
Are you under the impression that the village is in financial trouble? I mean, have you been told that or so? I mean,
I have been told that there are some concerns about financial issues, yes, sir. The extent of which I do not know.
no, because I don't think the village is in financial trouble. I think we're in pretty good shape from the last audits that I've looked at. And I don't know, but the last two audits we haven't seen yet, but I don't. And I just asked that question just because that's what you were lying on. I mean, was talking about financial manager. I don't, in my experience, they don't just come in and take over and say, you're in financial trouble unless you're in financial trouble.
Right.
I have a question for you as well. When we look forward, this is not a foregone conclusion. This is something that you have had experience with. So
Right.
if we deem we're working with Plant Moran, with the Treasury Department, with a forensic accountant, that our problems are too big, you've had the experience within a couple different areas that would enable us to kind of try to get that train back on track so emergency management doesn't have to happen.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just, could we have a card? You have a card?
I think I do have some.
Okay.
Will you accept public questions?
Yeah, calls from the floor.
No.
Well, that's the next item.
Yeah.
No, I mean, while you're deciding on this, I just like to know what's the municipal experience that, you talked about a couple of school districts, but what's the municipal experience?
That's,
I represented the city of Detroit, the city of Pontiac, Royal Oak Township,
And
To name a
what
few.
actually?
as their council in various capacities.
question for you, Attorney Seegers. Have you represented, taken money and done representation of anyone on this board?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Next thing I'd like to do is we have an interim agreement from Attorney Seegers that matches the current agreement that we have with O'Reilly Rancilio. Can I pass that down to her? Clerk Mack, can you please make copies for them?
Would it be proper because she's going out for RFP?
We need emergency, representation.
Yeah, but you have that authority already.
We do.
Yeah. I said you have that authority already.
Okay. Well, and we've done the RFP, we're doing the RFP. So your question is,
I don't know what, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
What would be proper for us to
Well,
do now?
you have effective dates that you can put in the round.
yep, effective dates that we can put in there.
So you still doing RFP?
Um,
The RFP still stands.
Well, that's why I was wondering what, I mean, she was getting ready to do something else.
It opens whenever they get ready.
Yeah, the chair, they're sure to be working.
Yes.
Give council a few minutes to look over the legal agreement. I would like to entertain a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the legal services agreement between the Village of New Haven and Darrell Seegers, PLLC, effective May 22nd, 2014. Since we're going through the RFP process, and he would have to go through the RFP process as well. I suggest making it for a 2-month time period. If Attorney Darrell Seegers is open to doing that, so May 22nd, 2014 through July 22nd, 2014.
Like at 8:31.
8/31. Okay. Yeah, do we have to wait until 8/31?
No.
Okay, okay. Oh, okay, effective 8:31 PM, May 22nd through July 22nd, 2014. Do I have a second? Roll call, please, clerk, Matt, or discussion?
Question, then why do we have the 30-day on the,
You're talking about number 5?
yes.
This is the same clause that our current representation has. It allows for a smooth transition.
Right, but you're not hiring under the same situation.
No, I'm not.
Right, so the 30 days don't need to be there. You just gave us a date, you just gave us to July 22nd.
Well, the 30-day clause is there for the transition, so whatever it is that he discovers between that period, he will have to transfer it over to another attorney if he's not selected through the RFP.
Well, that's what I'm saying, why wouldn't that occur? You have him as an attorney tonight, but for 6 more minutes, why wouldn't you do the same thing?
6 more minutes, why wouldn't he do the same thing?
Well, you basically, he's taking over tonight, right?
Well, this says through July 22nd.
Okay, on July 22nd, the same thing should
The
happen.
expiration date is July 22nd. She gave
He
an
shouldn't
extra
have a
30
30-day
days.
notice.
No, he also has a 30-day notice.
She's given an extra 30 days beyond the RFP. We're gonna have a meeting on June the 10th. So that's 30 days.
Well, I agree with you when you said you didn't know what you were doing, I mean, that you knew it, this and you didn't know what you were doing, because that don't make sense. In fact, I was talking to her, not you.
Excuse me.
I was talking to you. Yeah, can you answer?
President, can you continue on with what you're doing? We don't have time to argue with you.
Absolutely. There's a motion on the table. Do we have a second? And I ask for a roll call.
I did have a question though.
Question, yes.
So, part to his point though, at 8:31, are we switching the attorneys?
What happens is he will then step in the emergency basis. The O'Reilly Rensselaer firm will be stepping out. We will allow a 30-day, because he has a 30-day clause that we would have to pay him for regardless. And that allows us to make sure that there's a smooth transition between the two. There's current litigation that's already happening, there's also pending litigation, so that it allows the attorneys to talk.
No, that makes sense.
Okay,
Because you have a 30 days.
and that's my point exactly. You gave him to the 22nd, no offense. You gave him to the 22nd. Now you're gonna, well, at the 22nd, he's done or he may be hired under the RFP.
Yes.
If not, he should be done that night, not to pay him another 30 days. That's what doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, and you know what, I do understand what you're saying. If the RFP goes into place and we choose someone other than
him, right.
Would you expect there not to be a transition period? Because there is always a
You
transition.
already made the date, you gave him a date to when his time is over
Let me
with.
say this. Okay, once the RFP is done, we can do the same thing today that we did the day of the RFP. Effective this day, which will probably be June the 12th or 14th, he has 30 days until his services is no longer needed.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You
So
told
that,
me,
let me finish, so June 10th, if you say 30 days from June 10th, that will be July the 10th. So it will actually have to be July the 22nd is the date you will have to give, because that's the expiration of his contract. So whichever way you look at it, you can give the 30 days.
but that's not what you gave him. You gave him
Yes,
from
we
No.
did.
May 22nd to July 22nd.
Okay.
July.
You know
I thought what she said, it
No,
said July.
If you actually read this, this means that if we chose to terminate earlier than that, we would be obligated, just like we're obligated under this contract, to do it. If he's done on the 22nd, he's done on the 22nd, his contract's over, he doesn't get paid another 30 days.
A motion can be made from
Yeah.
June 22nd.
But it whether it come June 22nd or not, you just gave him till July 22nd.
Yes, it does.
What's so hard for y'all to understand that?
There's a motion on the table.
I still have two
Right,
questions,
2 months.
two clarification questions.
Okay.
One for the RFP, the timeline, the proposed timetable. Does that reflect the last one that we had pretty closely? I mean, was it only roughly about 2 weeks
It's just like,
that it took?
No, it isn't, I'm sorry.
no, that's the same one, because I have writing with Attorney Davis.
Right.
It's the same one. But that's, I'm just telling you, it's the same one.
No, and that's what I'm just curious, because we just did it so recently, that
Yes.
was that timeline.
It took a while.
Fairly
get it-
close to 2
It took a
weeks.
while because some people kept turning down the RFPs, but once it got approved, they was on board right after it was approved.
And then we got, how many would you say back?
We had like 8 interviews that night.
No,
We was
Five.
like, we
Five.
picked 2 each, and we ended up doing
Five.
5, because
Fine.
each council member got to pick 2 attorneys that they might their proposal,
Okay,
and someone picked the same one.
okay.
That's why I didn't.
And that's my concern, is that we're giving, if we want to put that RFP out there, and we want these law firms to come back, we want to make sure we give them enough time, so that's why I'm just making sure.
Yes.
Perfect, okay, so that somewhat reflects the last one. The other question
that's
is,
not right.
for the 30 days, just going back to that, are we paying 2 attorneys
We didn't-
twice during the same month
Yes.
when we're in
We have more
transition
time.
period? So that's an extra both times, because this one, and then the next time when we do the RFP and we bring in another, just in case,
Right.
we don't go with
My point
Attorney
is that-
Seegers,
That's
then we're
because
spending about $16,000 just in money, just,
of the clause, right.
My
Because
point
you
exactly.
need to leave room for a transition period.
I understand
You
it. I
can't let
just
somebody go
clarifying
and
that
then
we're
not
spending.
let them work together to have understanding about what they did while they were there, so that when the next attorney, because that's an attorney-attorney relationship.
I don't,
Can we have a motion? Can we have a roll call?
Yeah, can we have a roll call, please?
trustee Chandler,
no.
trustee Harris,
No,
trustee Pridemore,
Yes.
trustee Hill,
Yes.
trustee Tidwell,
Yes.
President Passanant.
Yes. Motion carried.
Motion
I'm not signing today.
Yes.
proposal, I'm gonna get more information on it for, the IT services, from the consulting company. That'll be on June's agenda. Clerk's items, there are none. Unfinished, business, there are none. Calls from the floor.
Everybody here.
Okay, just a couple. Sure.
I'm a George J. resident for 1,000 years. I have one request. I would like you to consider revisiting the ordinance for the construction board of appeals. What we did tonight was tabling it for until whenever, and then it's with the guy that you just fired, and so it leaves me in a more if I wasn't already in a terrible situation, having business before a construction board of appeals for it'll be a year next month, and was just delaying and delaying and delaying. So, because it makes absolutely no sense to postpone approval of the ordinance, because the ordinance is the ordinance. There's no such thing as a resolution until the ordinance is adopted. And to say the resolution is going to happen before or at the same time of an ordinance is, I suppose you could do that. But, the resolution is to do some things that's instructed in the ordinance.
Absolutely.
So could you please go back maybe and resurrect that if it's legally possible?
If I can make a comment, we actually were expecting to have that resolution done. The current attorney did not bring it with him.
Forget about the resolution. There's no such thing
Well,
as
the
a resolution.
as
You
well as
need
the
the ordinance. There's no ordinance.
That's correct. We would have adopted both this evening.
Well, you can still adopt the ordinance. That's all I'm asking is to adopt the ordinance. The resolution, that's about the fees that are involved. And I'm asking you to please adopt the resolution, because I've been, and to go one step further, you haven't been a part of this, but some people don't mind this is violating the law, because this is a matter of law. State law requires that you have this ordinance and establish by ordinance this board, construction board. And as long as you do that, you're just violating the state law and your own ordinance. And that's simple. Can you please do that? Tonight.
Oh, tonight? We're doing calls from the floor right now.
Well, you can act on a request if
I've already discussed with Deborah Mack, my idea to make sure that the local schools are notified of the Parks and Recreation activity, so that the schools can let their students know before the end of the school year. And thank you, Deborah. Selena, I would like to know why the office phones weren't picked up today in the afternoon. I had someone who's been doing some work for me, and she needed to talk to the office, and she could not get an answer.
What time did you call?
I know she tried several times earlier. Last time she did try to call about 4:45 today, but she's been trying all afternoon. And I did let her know that offices are closed tomorrow, normal on Fridays, and I